This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchioni.
We are looking forward to a fabulous, exciting, and provocative conversation because I said something a few episodes back that has pushed against some of the things that the rest of society says. And I think you want to say, what's up with that?
Maybe. Let me just... Okay, so this is... I will generally say it this way. I feel trusted because I have a lot of experience on, like you said, I can walk both sides of the streets. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is, a trust. So I feel an obligation to be correct in a sense. Okay, so yeah, I'm very detailed to begin with. So if I'm teaching something, I'm going to make your ears bleed because because I want to make sure it's right. And that has been my, as Paul said, my heart's desire and prayer before God is to help you understand something if it's given to me to share with you. So when you said that nobody we don't manifest anything, I said, yeah, okay, I get it. Your explanation I thought was really, really clear, no questions. However, it is not necessarily shared that way in general. You don't hear people saying, we don't manifest anything. What is out there is that you can manifest anything if you do
this. You can manifest anything.
You can, yeah. And so then I'm thinking, okay, a lot of people, they're not confused about this. So what makes you say this? And see, this will cause a problem on both sides of the street, I would imagine, because if you're telling me something that isn't quite correct, and you say, well, that you can manifest if you do this, this, and this, and you buy my whatever, and it's going to help you do it, right? It becomes something else. And that's where I get really bothered because you're messing with people's belief system. Mm-hmm. And if it is as you believe and people are not believing what is correct, then that is harmful. And I'm getting passionate here, so I'm going to back off because I think you see where I'm going.
Okay. The technique that we're talking about is manifesting, mm-hmm. which is the current incarnation of the self-help affirmation technique of claiming good and using your mental awareness to set the intention for something wonderful to happen or for something to happen in your life, and then it does. And that the affirmation step is, we used to do affirmations. Louise Hay taught everybody to do affirmations. I'm wonderful, I'm prosperous, I'm healthy, I'm a child of God, and then that would come into our experience. And manifesting is more focused on the end result. Mm-hmm. So I'm manifesting a new job. I'm manifesting a fabulous relationship. I'm manifesting a happy family. I'm manifesting a new house. And use the same techniques, the same process of doing affirmations and claiming our good, and then it shows up in our life. Mm-hmm. And that is the process of manifesting. And I didn't say that doesn't work. What I said is we don't manifest anything. Mm-hmm. Because we are doing this in partnership with an infinite creative power that creates everything. And when it works according to our belief, and our belief is activating that creative law. So it is not us that's manifesting stuff. It is that infinite creative power that's manifesting stuff. We, I'm repeating what I said before, we don't manifest anything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a partnership. I will refer you back to, it's one of the early parts of the New Testament in John 14, where Jesus goes into great detail about it's not me, it's the Father within. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He repeats that several times. Mm-hmm. It is not I, it is the Father within who doeth the work, depending on which version that you're looking at. Jesus didn't manifest anything. He said it was the Father within who was manifesting everything. So if Jesus couldn't do it, then what the heck do you think you're doing?
Okay. So that
am I just a troublemaker?
No. I'm still not quite sure. I think that my hesitance in saying it real straight the way I am feeling it is probably getting in the way of the communication of what I meant. I see exactly what you're saying. And I believe it's 100. I have no problem with that. I'm 100% with you. Where it falls off for me is that I am not sure that correct teaching is out there for people to understand.
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
I completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. I'm doing a class at the beginning of the year on learn to do healing like Jesus, which goes into all of this stuff because, Jesus was a miracle worker. And that was a big part of his ministry. He came teaching love. He came doing miracles. And, they made this whole story about, resurrection. And the reason that we should do what he said is because he died and came back. But all the time that he was here, he was doing different stuff. And throughout his ministry, he said, here's how you do it. Mm-hmm. He taught the disciples how to do it. He taught anybody who was willing to learn how to do it. He was giving it away. There was not even, the price of admission. He didn't have to buy a decoder ring. He said, this is how it works. You can do it. Mm-hmm. And some people did, and it works. And it's now hidden so plainly right there in Scripture that what we're going to do in the class is dive into the Scripture and see what he actually said, and then try doing what he actually said to do and see what that does.
Well, we know what that's going to do.
I know.
It's what
I don't need the class.
Right.
That's why I'm teaching.
Yes. But we know already what it's going to do. I was being a bit sympathetic as you were, I don't know if that's the right word. But anyway, I was being a little something while you were explaining it because I don't think that is clearly understood on the other side of the street either. I don't think so.
Not. Absolutely
not. Okay, so that's a whole nother issue by itself. But once you come over into this side, and the word deconstruction is being used a lot. So, when people are deconstructing, all the information, in my opinion, is not given. Mm-hmm. And there's no way that people can successfully do this without, kind of the details of it, right? You're just kind of leaving out the middle part because sometimes on the other side of the street, people don't understand the Jesus thing anyway. They don't understand the whole, Jesus business anyway. So when you come here and then you explain what Jesus meant, there's a little bridge there that doesn't connect. And I think that's important when people are deconstructing. They need to see how the pieces fit together. However, there's also those who claim to know, and maybe they don't. Maybe they don't know. They're claiming to know that this is how you manifest. And people are going through these steps and it's not working for them. And then they're distressed. And it's because the whole thing isn't being shared properly.
Yeah, and what happens is that it works. You know, the manifesting techniques that are in all the best-selling books, they all work. They all work, and they work up until the edge of our belief. As soon as we get into doubt or disbelief, and we're trying to manifest something that we don't believe that we can have, that we deserve, or that's possible, then the manifesting thing stops working.
Well, that is very important, don't you think? That people should say, when you said right up to the edge of your belief, that's important. Like, stop right there. What does that mean? And, you know, what do you believe about this, this, and this? Now, forgive me, everybody, but that's just me, you know, my OCD-ness with
That's your thoroughness.
with details, but it makes a difference because, and here's why I care, the other side of it. If you're all stressed out and feeling bad and whatever because such and such isn't working, then you can easily shift back into an old way of thinking that it's your fault. There's something wrong with you. You're da. And, you know, that's so wrong.
Well, it's unhelpful. It's unhelpful. If we want to create a feeling of misery and not enoughness, that's the way to do it.
Now, I like the way you said. It's nice the way you said it's unhelpful. But I'm telling you, I am talking to people who are in deep negativity about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the root is in just maybe that little bit of an understanding right there. It's worse than not helpful. It's destructive to people. And
to think that there's a way of manifesting something wonderful and it doesn't work for me. Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah. Because you have a myriad of things that you can call on from your past to justify why you're such a loser. Because I'm a loser because of this, this, and this. And let me say this. People can have things that happen to them like molestation, things like that in their past. And you sweep it under the carpet and keep on going. But secretly, they may think that it was their fault. So then you can't manifest because, look at what I caused to happen to me. I mean, that's tragic, but that's a reality, and
that's definitely part of experience. Yes, absolutely.
So you can kind of see that's part of the world where I live, where I am. And so you can see why I'm really passionate about it, because people are really struggling in areas that they don't need to. It's not necessary because they simply are misinformed, or a little bit of information is withheld, maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally. I don't know. I'm just bringing that up.
Yep. And if somebody's story and it's tragic when those things happen, I'm not going to in any way minimize that or brush it under the rug. When a human being is molested as a child, that leaves an imprint.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about being at the bottom of a power dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's always bigger, usually more powerful, usually more authoritative, older, wiser, somebody who's up on the power chain someplace, is being abusive to this child who's down lower on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's real easy to get locked in there.
Mm-hmm.
For the person who's been molested, who's been violated, who's been abused, to think that, that's where I belong on this power differential.
Mm-hmm.
And get stuck there. That, I think, is a large part of why there's so much recurrence, that people who were abused when they were younger abuse people who are younger than them, because they finally grew into the position where they can pass it on. And maybe it's the belief that, that's the way you act when you're older or more powerful or bigger or stronger. Or maybe it's trying to shed the energy that was dumped into them all those years ago.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I actually gave a really tragic example of there's just so many things that happen to us through our lives, even if it's not, quote, as devastating as what we just talked about. There are other reasons that people feel that they're less than. Maybe somebody just told you and you just believed it. And that, I think those little things have to be unraveled when we're going to a bigger place, let's say. Forgive me if this is the wrong way to say it, but there's terms like expanded consciousness and, awakenings and expanded awareness and all of that. I mean, I see it and I love those beautiful words, but what that is in reality is a person moving forward or blossoming or coming to a bigger space in their life, into the realm of possibilities that you talk about.
Absolutely.
That totally blew me away, right?
Right.
It's the realm of possibilities. And when you feel excluded from that because of some untruth that's been in your world, that needs to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely. And there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of techniques. There are a lot of teachers and approaches to that. I want to describe it though, because, in my life, I've had it much better off than a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I've also had other people who have had it much better off than me. And what I want to introduce it's actually a technical idea. It's called dynamic range. Okay. And so there's a range, and you can think of it as a graph. The bottom of the graph is the worst thing that ever happened to you. Okay. That's your bottom. Okay. And at the top of the graph, there's the best thing that ever happened to you. Mm-hmm. And that's your range. Everything else fits in between the worst thing and the best thing. Mm-hmm. So it's somewhere, in the middle here. Are there people whose dynamic range goes lower than you? Yeah. Because maybe I didn't get to go to sleepaway camp for 2 weeks like my friends did, and I only got to go to sleepaway camp for 1 week when I was a kid. And there are other people whose villages are being bombed for the 15th time this month. Mm-hmm. Well, their dynamic range goes a lot lower than mine does. Mm-hmm. My experience, though, is still from the best thing to the worst thing. And the growth happens when we expand, when we acknowledge and have empathy for the people whose dynamic range is lower than ours, and lift the bottom of what's possible for us up higher, and at the same time expand into the possibility that we can go beyond the best thing that's ever happened to us before. So that's where the shift in consciousness and the growth happens for us, and we can manifest a change there. But again, we're not doing the manifesting. We are in partnership with an infinite creative power that's doing the manifesting. Let us take a break, because I want to get back into this, and I've got two what I think of as very important questions. And you'll be able to tell me if they're actually important questions.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol with Reverend Bill Marcione.
We're having a wonderful conversation about my provocative claim that we don't manifest anything, even though we live in a world that's filled with people telling us that we can manifest anything. Mm-hmm. And we're getting into the details of what I mean and how I could say something that's so at odds with the entire present movement in self-help. And we were talking a little bit before about dynamic range, about the range between the worst thing that happens to us and the best thing that happened to us. And that's all very true. And in our human experience, that's where we're living. And it's possible for it to go, beyond in either direction. So I told you I got two questions. And the first question is, where is God? When somebody starts talking about, I'm manifesting this, it's like, okay, you're going to manifest this. In relation to you manifesting this, where's God? And if the answer is God is out there, watching over me, thinking about whether I deserve it or not, then all the power is where?
Out there.
Out there. That's right. And I'm not going to manifest anything. I'm going to ask some power outside of me to manifest something. It's either going to do me a favor or turn me down. Okay? And if whatever it is does get manifest, it does happen, where is God? Well, God is actually within, which, getting back to what Jesus said, you see me, you see the Father. That infinite creative power is within. And that is the big notion. So the first thing to consider when we're trying to do any of this spiritual work is, where is God? And that is the huge difference between the New Thought side of the street, where we're doing practical prayer, and your traditional side of the street. Is everything is God. That divine power and presence is in everything, and that includes me and each of us. Does that change it at all?
It's different. It's clearly a different perspective to see it from. And if you're going to be on the traditional side and your God is out there somewhere, it would be difficult to make the manifestation argument at all, in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if God is outside of me and I'm manifesting something, it's because God lets me.
It's more stuff tangled up in that. If we were going to push that, it would be more than that. Even if God is the manifester on the traditional side, let's say, okay, so you're doing all of this stuff, and it's not. If God lets you manifest, it's God releasing the manifestation according to your worthiness and behavior and so forth, whether you tick off all the stuff in a box. And it comes like that. So if you're on that side of the street, you got not a prayer. Because I mean, I'm just
there's a lot more subjugation in that than what I was talking about.
Yeah. So, but it's important, right? Because you tried to do your very best, and your best is never, ever good enough. So I never heard anybody talk about manifestation on the other side of the street. I mean, it doesn't happen over there. So,
at least not where the pastor can hear it.
Yeah, but I mean, this is not to belittle anybody, but if God is the manifester, then let's be clear about this. What releases the manifestation? And you say that it is your belief, what you believe. On the other side of the street, it says it's your worthiness, just to kind of sum it up. And I think it's really important to bring those two facts together, or those two thoughts together, so that there's no confusion about what we're doing with this thing. Okay. If you can't be on the other side of the street, say manifestation isn't working and therefore it's a lie. It is not a lie. It depends on what you believe, and your beliefs need to be set in order and be correct, so that, the equation has, it can't work if it's not all correct. You leaving stuff out, and
yeah, it doesn't work with the abridged version.
Right. And so that's just me. I'm just like, be fair. It's more than just being detailed. It's fair. You got to take all the evidence to court. or you're not going to
Yep.
get any justice in this.
Well, going back to my notion of dynamic range, from worst thing to best thing, what is it that set that range in place?
Your experience?
Yeah,
The
and it's
experiences?
the unfolding of experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's a universe of infinite potential. So it is possible for anything to happen. So, things continue going along, and then something that is unpleasant and undesirable happens, and that pushes down the bottom of the range. And then something really wonderful and delightful comes along. You meet somebody which is completely new, and you never would have imagined that this could be wonderful, and it's love at first sight, and that pushes the top end of the dynamic range out a little bit. Our range is completely arbitrary. It's based on things that have happened for us so far. And when we remember that there's that one creative power, it's all created there. And it's possible for us to have an experience that's well outside of our usual range of good to bad. Mm-hmm. And that's the second question, which is an almost rhetorical question, which is, where did all this come from?
I don't know if that's rhetorical or not, because that assumes that everybody ought to know that.
Well, I think 177 episodes into the Practical Prayer podcast, I've mentioned it once or twice because I keep getting back to creation stories, but maybe it's not a rhetorical question.
Well, it's God, whatever God is to you, source, whatever you call God.
And everybody has a different way of explaining where this all came from. Mm-hmm. And included in that is that wherever it all came from, we're part of it. So as it continues to grow and evolve and unfold and develop into something new and different, as those boundaries get pushed in either direction, it's all happening in that same one creative presence, that one love. So our notion, when I say where is God, God is everything and everywhere and everyone, and God is within. So I don't have to look over there, like, out past the orbit of Neptune. That's where God is. No, God is indwelling. God is everything. And when I think about where all of everything in creation came from, it came from God. It has to. That's all there is. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about manifesting, we are talking about using that same creative power that creates everything to create our next experience of newness, whatever it is that we're looking for. And something that I might describe as good, the person down the street might describe as bad, and the infinite creative power doesn't really have a horse in that race. So we're able to create whatever it is that we want, and the manifestation happens when we are in alignment with that infinite creative power, claiming the good that's the truth of us, and being willing to step beyond those limitations that we've had before. Do I believe it's possible? Well, if the answer is no, I don't believe it's possible, then manifestation's not going to work. And if I truly do believe it's possible, then nothing's going to stop it.
So, okay, you said, where is God? And that is where I start. Everything, it's where is God, because that's going to determine the next thing that I say to you. It's going to tell me how you think about everything. And it may very well tell me that this is not going to happen for a minute. This understood. Because this I think that this is such an incredibly important thing to talk about, this God thing, or to be aware of, because you're talking about people's lives, because there's so much that rests in what we believe about God. And I call it, your theistic dislocation. That's something that I made up, but it's, you say God is out there or in here. Yeah, let's stop here for a minute and let's get this straight. I'm saying that no right or wrong it doesn't matter what I think. What do you think? And if that God being out there part is working for you, probably you're not going to let that go. I need to know if it's working for you. Or do you just have itchy ears? If it's not, right, if it's not working for you, then we have a different discussion. So again, that's just being nitpicky, but sometimes people are locked in. They just have itchy ears. They want to hear an interesting story or whatever. And to me, it's more important than that, because there's all kinds of crises that we will face or could possibly face, where this right here, what you believe about this right here, maybe not manifesting exactly, but around that will make the difference in how you navigate through the crisis.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It is possible to transcend whatever the challenges are and to go beyond whatever the best possible situation we could have imagined. I did come up with a term as you're talking.
Yes.
It's called a theolocator.
Let me write that down. It sounds nicer than mine.
Well, it's me and a pithy phrase. So that's your theolocator.
I should have called you to begin with, because
when you find your own idea of the presence of God, and that's actually key, because if we know that God abides within, then it changes the possibilities that we have. Then if we think that God is outside and we have to ask a favor and maybe something miraculous will happen. And even people who believe in miracles, there's still some doubt about whether they're going to get one.
It's so much doubt that I don't see how you can have any sense of confidence. I said one time that, when you're praying and you got all these things, these possible things that could interfere, you're just like waiting for luck. It's like a stroke of luck that you might, it may work for you. So that's it. I think I made my point well, and I really appreciate the way you explained it, especially
Theolocator.
Theolocator.
All right. Let's take another break, and then we're going to do a prayer. And it'll be a prayer about manifesting, even though we know that we don't manifest anything. Here's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at bethelight.com. That's b-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at bethelight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
I've been having a wonderful conversation about my challenging statement that we don't manifest anything, even though we live in a world where manifestation and manifesting is just huge. And there are lots of stories and lots of people with abilities to do that manifesting. And I'll give you an analogy, which that kind of explains my take on this. Is could you drive from where you are to New York City? And the answer is yeah. The fact of the matter is, the car is what's going to go to New York City. You're just going to be in it. And you're going to be at the controls. But without a car, it's a much different trip. And that's the same thing with manifesting. We don't manifest anything, but we do get in and we drive the car. We set the course, we choose where it is we're going to do, we do the parts that are ours to do, and we let ourselves be delivered to that destination, to that desired experience. So when I say we don't manifest anything, we are participating in that infinite creative process, and the manifestation happens, but it is a partnership between us and that motive power, if we want to put it that way. So the prayer we're going to do today is to acknowledge and align with that infinite creative power that creates everything. Jesus said, "The words that I speak to you, I do not speak on my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does the works." And that's from the New King James Version. And he's said in other places that everything he does, we can do. So he's telling us how it works. He's telling us how it works. "The words that I speak to you, I do not speak on my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does the works." So I can say the words, and that divine creative power within does the work. In the same way that I can sit in the driver's seat and the car will carry me to whatever my destination is. So the prayer is to open to that, the awareness of that infinite creative power, to remember, to realize, to recognize, to acknowledge, to claim, to rejoice in the fact that there is one divine creative power, one infinite intelligence, one loving source of everything. That one is the center and circumference of everything that exists in this entire universe. 14.2 billion light years across and growing, with billions of galaxies and stars and planets and places and people and particles and all of it. It is all that richness, all that variety, all that diversity is one power and presence, one love, one energy, one intelligence that has been reshaping and reforming and rearranging itself since the very beginning of time. It has, at the present moment, rearranged itself as me. It has rearranged itself as each of us. Everyone within the sound of my voice is that infinite presence taking particular form in this present moment. The cool thing about recognizing that is that implied right within that is that all of that intelligence, all of that creative power, all of that love, all of that good, all of that potential that exists anywhere, exists everywhere, and exists as each of us right now. So as we set the intention to have something new and wonderful and delightful and joyous manifest in our experience, to show up next in our experience, we are partnering with that infinite creative power, that one divine presence, that one that creates it all, and allowing, inviting, and encouraging that one power to create this next bit of newness for us. In the same way that we get to choose which road we're going to take, which exit we're going to be on, we can be guided to take our next perfect steps as we move closer and closer and closer to that desired experience. It is a partnership with the infinite. And that one divine creative power says yes. There's no force in the universe that stands in opposition to it. As we open to the good that's available, that good unfolds for us as the infinite creates through us. So I'm grateful for the good that's coming about for each of us. I'm grateful for the willingness to acknowledge that divine power and presence within. I'm grateful for the new ideas that are even now percolating and the new experiences that are even now coming about. And so with a deep feeling of thanks for all of this good, gratitude for the awareness of the creative process, and deep, deep appreciation for the ability to speak this word and release it into that creative law, and to know that it is already returning manifest. There's no possibility that it returns void. It is underway now. So I let it be. I speak this word and I know it's so. So it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.